Of Math, Geometry, Unit 1, Lesson 17 is called Working with Rigid Transformations. So our goal today is I can write a sequence of rigid motions that takes a pre-image figure to an image. So our warm-up here. Segment CD is the perpendicular bisector of segment AB. Find each transformation mentally. So let me annotate this diagram here. I'm going to put my perpendicular and I'm going to put some congruency marks there. So transformation that takes A to B. So I would need to write this with proper wording. I would say reflect point A across segment CD. Transformation that takes B to A would be, reflect B across segment CD. Okay, so you got to make sure that we use our sentence frames, reflect your object across a line or a segment, I guess in this case. Transformation takes C to D. So I can't reflect C across AB because the problem is these are different lengths. So if I reflect C across BA here, if you look here, if I were to trace that here, it would, it is perpendicular, but it's going to go all the way down here. It's not going to line up perfectly. So I would have to maybe do a translation. So maybe if I did like, maybe a translation like this from here to there, I could translate C by directed line segment CD. And then this would be, I would have to flip it. So let me just change my direction. Segment still is the same length. Oh, I thought I changed it. Whoops. There you go. So this one would be translate D by directed line segment DC. Okay. I guess the only one I didn't do was a rotation. Maybe I should have done one of these as a rotation because I guess you could see here, and just to review the language here. Here's A and here's B. Pardon my language here, but here's M. So if I rotate this segment 180 degrees centered at M, do you see how that B and A flip-flop? So right there, you could just say, rotate. Let me change that so we know the language here. Rotate A 180 degrees. You can go either way because 180 degrees is the same clockwise or counterclockwise. Okay, so you need what you're rotating, you need an angle measure, you need a direction, and you need a center of rotation. Okay. All right, so the next thing here is we're going to have a bunch of cards, and we're not so much going to sort them into a category we're choosing. We will probably go through them and just kind of label them as rigid motion or not rigid motion. And then with the rigid motion ones, we're going to write a sequence of transformations, mainly rotations, translations, and reflections to get the original figure to the image. And we're going to be very precise so that we know exactly what we're doing here, okay? So let's just go through these here. Rigid motion or not rigid motion. I will write them up here at the top. This is rigid because they are congruent. This is a dilation, so this is not rigid. looks like it's rigid. They look like they're the same size, same angles. This is definitely stretched horizontally, so this is not rigid. These look rigid, and these look rigid as well. So there's, out of these 6 cards here, we have 4 of them that we're going to have to come up with a sequence of rigid motions, okay? So the way that I always say, this is what I like to do. I'm going to go back. I'm going to put a slide here. I like to do this. I like to translate to align a point. Then I like to rotate to align a side. And then I will reflect to align the figures, okay? Now, here's the thing. Sometimes you don't need all 3 steps. Sometimes you can just translate. Sometimes you can just rotate. Sometimes you can just reflect. Sometimes you need to do 2 steps, okay? But I usually generally say start with the translate if possible. If a point already aligns, then you might just be able to rotate or reflect. But I like to go in this order, okay? So let's start out by, here's my pre-image, ABC, and my image is A prime, B prime, C prime. So let's start out by translating. So it really doesn't matter which figure or which point we translate to. I'm going to go B to B prime. So my first step here, I'll write it over here, and I'm going to say translate triangle ABC by directed line segment B, B prime. Okay, so when I do that, it's gonna move over there. So let me get this figure traced here. All right, there it is. I'm going to make a different color so it's easier to see. All right, so I'm going to take this point, translate the whole figure. Okay, cool. So I got a point aligned. All right. So now I need to rotate it to get a side. So if I keep this point right here fixed, I'll put a little purple there. That's my pin. I pin that down. I'm going to swing this triangle up here. Okay, so this side here aligns with A prime, C prime, and then this side here aligns with A prime, B prime. So it looks like I can get away with doing it in 2 transformations. So my next one is going to be rotate the image clockwise until, you know what I'm going to also do too? Let me change this here. I'm going to call this A double prime, B double prime, and C double prime. That way I can call this point here B double prime, B prime, C prime, A prime. Okay. So you can do an angle measure, or you can say until a side aligns. I'm going to say until A prime, C prime aligns with A double prime, C double prime. Okay. So I'm just going to swing this side. This is my pivot. My delta, or my program doesn't allow me to keep that point fixed, but pretend that I pivoted right there and rotated it. And there we go. All right. So we just did it. All right. On to the next one. All right. So this is not rigid. So I would not do a sequence of rigid motions. What you could do though is you could eventually, hang on a second. Let me get this triangle. you could eventually, translate to get a point to line up. And then once you get, D and D prime to line up, then we could shrink it down right there, centered at D. But I'm having trouble doing that right now with the way that this works. But you could shrink it down right there so that they fit. I didn't do it right, but close enough. So, but we're not doing dilations yet. That's not till later, so don't worry about that. But eventually, you got to get one point to line up, and then you can shrink it down. Or I guess you could shrink it down and then translate it. Either way, I usually like to just translate first. Okay. All right. So this one, I think we can do it in one transformation here. So here's my original. Oops. There we go. All right, so really if I just translate by any directed line segment here, so, if I want to go I to I prime, or really you could take that same directed line segment, I can go H to H prime, G to G prime, I to J prime, really any one of those you could use. So we'd have different answers here potentially, but I could do it in one transformation here. So I'll just show you here, take that point right there and boom, the whole thing lines up. So I'm just going to say translate JIHG by directed line segment J prime. And then we're done. Okay, easy one. Next one, again, it's a dilation. It's getting stretched, not so much vertically, just horizontally. It's almost like I just, stretch it out wider. So we're not going to do any transformations because we haven't learned about dilations yet. All right, so this one looks like it's going to be a 3. We're going to need 3 transformations, okay? So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to change the letters. I'm going to change the letters because I don't like how they make it the prime notation here, because we're going to have to do multiple transformations. So let's do this. Let's change these letters here. And just color over these. And I'm just going to use totally different letters completely, instead of just adding primes. I'm going to call it like, I don't know, W. Whoops, I need to change it from white. W, X, Y, and Z. Okay. So as I look here, the first thing I want to do is I want to get a point to line up. So I'm probably going to translate right there by directed line segment RW. Okay, that'll get a point to line up. So let me get this figure traced here. All right, there we go. So the first thing I'm going to do, translate by directed line segment RW. All right, that will allow me to align a point, like I had said. All right, now I'm going to rotate centered at that point. Okay, so really you could call all these points here, if you wanted to here, this would be T prime, S prime. W is also R prime, call that U prime. Okay, so now we're going to rotate it. And you really just have to align one side here. So I could rotate it and align this side, or that side, either one. I'll probably go up here because that way it'll leave me a little more space. So I'm going to rotate R prime, S prime, U prime, T prime. It looks like 90 degrees. I don't want to assume it's 90 degrees, so I'm going to say I'm going to rotate it counterclockwise until R prime S prime aligns with WX. Okay, so when I rotate this, now it won't let me center it at W, but we get right there. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of these points here. This was S. This is going to be S double prime. This was T, so that's T double prime. So I'm going to add a prime there for all of these. So double prime, double prime, double prime, double prime. So then my last step would be to reflect it. Reflect S double prime, T double prime, U double prime, R double prime across line. Call it XW, or you can call it S double prime, RW, R double prime, either one. So reflect it so that the figures align. So if I reflect this horizontally, again, it won't let me reflect over that specific line, but if I flip it, okay, wait, did I do it right? Oh, I must have clicked up, down. Let me hit undo. Oh, it's because I turned it. It won't let me do that. So I probably have to click the up, down button. There we go. So it would reflect it right across there, but it's really left, right. Okay, and there we go. All right, last one here. This one, here's my pre-image. Here's my image because it's got the primes. This one, I think I can do it in 2. So let's do this. Let's change the final letters to double prime because I know I'm going to have to do 2. So here's my original. Let me get this traced. All right, there we go. So first thing I got to do is I got to get a point to a line. I think the W might be the easiest one to get to a line. So I'm going to translate right here by W, 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 W double prime. That's hard to say. So W, X, Y. Let's start with V. V, W, X, Y, Z. And again, make sure you go in order as you name these things. Okay, so I can start with any letter. I just have to go around it, around the perimeter of it. Okay, so when I name my directed line segment, I always put the starting point first and the ending point second. So here it goes. I translate it right there. And then I think I can just do a rotation centered right there at W double prime. The reason I chose to change those was because these are all going to be the primes now. All right. And then I'll end at the double prime. So the last one would be rotate. I copy this and put the primes in there. Until, and then you just pick a side. So I'm going to say until side W prime V prime aligns with W double prime V double prime. and then you put your center centered at W prime or WW prime, the W double prime because they're the same spot. And again, it won't let me rotate at that center, so bear with me as I turn it at a different center. But there it would line up right there. Okay, so there we go. All right, a couple more things tying it all together here. Diego says, I see why a reflection could take RST U to R prime S prime T prime U prime, but I'm not sure where the line of reflection is. I'll just guess. How could Diego see that a reflection could work without knowing where the line of reflection is? So remember, a line of reflection is a perpendicular bisector. So the easiest thing to do would be connect one of the pairs of points and then get your compass out and construct a perpendicular bisector. So if you recall, you would need to put your point right there, open it up to the width of the segment, and construct this perpendicular bisector. And that would actually be the line of reflection. So this line from here to there, that would be my line of reflection. Okay, so what would you do? I would say that, whoops, sorry about that. I would say that I would create a segment by connecting any pre-image and image, and then construct a perpendicular bisector. Can't spell, which will be the line of reflection. Okay? How could Diego find an exact line of reflection that would work? Well, I kind of answered that for this one. I kind of got even more specific, so that's going to be your answer. Okay? All right. So here is an image and pre-image. Here's my pre-image. Here's my image. What happened? All right. What is different about this from the previous case? I'm not really sure what this is asking from the previous case. I don't know. It seems pretty similar to the last one in that I don't have a line of reflection. Not really sure what's different. I'd say it's pretty much the same thing. We don't have a line of reflection. Next thing, what happens when we try the same sequence of transformations from last time? I think if I reflect over this line, I think it's still going to be good. So my line of reflection would be somewhere right in the middle. I'm going to do a perpendicular bisector of C prime. I think it's going to work fine. So I don't know what this is really saying. You could, if you could find the line of reflection, you could do it in one. So you would have to make a segment, construct a perpendicular bisector, and reflect it. Or the other options are basically here. Let me trace this here. The other options are translate by directed line segment C prime, rotate it right there, and then reflect across this line. And there we go. We'll get, your final triangle will be right there. Okay. So you can do it with 3 transformations: translate, rotate, reflect, or you could find the center, the line of reflection. That one you could probably do with 1. So I don't really like these questions. All right, last one. Find a sequence of rigid motions to take each vertex ABC to the corresponding. So This one, I could probably skip the rotate if you look here. So if I look here, let me trace this thing. I think I could translate by directed line segment B, B prime. And then if I reflect over line A prime, B prime, it would then take me right here. If I reflect over line A prime, B prime, I would then end up right here. Okay, so that's it for this lesson. Just be precise with your transformations. Make sure you use your sentence frames that I showed you in previous lessons. Remember, always translate your image by directed line segment blank, reflect your image over line blank, and rotate your image clockwise or counterclockwise until a side aligns or by an angle name or angle measure around a point of rotation, a center of rotation. Okay. As long as you do all that, you will be in good shape on these. So thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you next time.